Welcome to the Foster Files. My name is Kelly, and I am a foster with Cross Your Paws Rescue in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. My husband Mike and I are fosters for dogs, and we've been supporting rescue for a long time. All of our animals have been rescues. What we're trying to do with this podcast is really focus on specific dogs that are in rescue and are maybe in need of some additional support, some additional highlight. I mean, some fosters stay in their foster homes waiting for their forever family for months or even more than a year. And we want to make sure we can get those dogs to the forefront of people's minds and hearts. In addition to focusing on specific dogs, we'd like to talk a lot about what it means to be a foster, what it means to make the decision to get into fostering, what kind of challenges each dog can present with fostering, and then above all, how rewarding it can be to make this decision to support rescue in this way. We'll also talk about additional ways that you can support rescue, even if you are unable to be a foster. Ultimately, we really just want to focus on animal welfare, and I felt like this was a platform that we could do that. So how did we get into fostering to begin with? Well, I personally have had dogs my entire life. My husband, not so much. I'm very fortunate that when we met, I already had 4 rescue dogs, and he decided that I was worth taking the plunge into that for. At our most, we had 5 dogs for about 8 years, I guess. And then in 2022, we lost 2 of them. And so at the end of 2023, I really looked at our life and our situation, and I really felt like I wanted to do more. I'm sure a lot of you that care about animals see all different kinds of dogs in need of rehoming, of fostering, of save before euthanasia. And I'm sure that it impacted you the way that it impacted me. And we don't have children. We have 2 incomes. We have a big, beautiful fenced-in yard. And I just thought that it was really the time to put our money where our mouth was and say, let's talk about fostering dogs. Since October of 2023, we fostered 19 dogs. We've only adopted 1 of them, so we call that a foster fail, and we've only done that once. And I'll talk a little bit about her, I'm sure, throughout this whole podcast. But I think that it's really time to kind of expand what we're trying to do. We have a foster right now named Max, and I want to talk to you about Max because Max is special. He really is a unique dog in that it's not going to be easy to find Max's perfect home. Max was with us back in March of this year. He was found as a stray by our partner in Wolfe County, Kentucky, Wolfe County Animal Shelter. And he made his way onto transport and here to the Pittsburgh area and into our home. When he came here in March, we actually had 3 dogs at that time. We had Denver, our lab and shepherd mix, who passed away just this April. Snowball, who's our 14-year-old Shih Tzu with degenerative disc disease nonetheless. And then Cheese, who I mentioned earlier, who we adopted last year. And Max is really high energy. He's a large dog. He's also probably a shepherd or Malinois lab mix. He's tall, at least 80 pounds. He's neutered, which is great, but he's young. So he has a ton of energy, and he's big and he's strong. So right away, he really made his way into our hearts just with his goofy personality. He got along really well with us. Got along, pretty well with the other dogs. Denver and Snowy don't really want to do anything with the fosters, but Cheese will interact with them. And he and Cheese would play and play and play and play and play. And everything was going really well. I am fortunate that I own my own business. And so I oftentimes will take fosters into the business with me. And I just feel like it gives me an opportunity to socialize them, see how they interact with my team, my employees. But then it also gives me an opportunity to highlight them, right? Like maybe one of these days the customer will come in and meet a dog and fall in love with the dog and decide to adopt it. And how cool is that? So back in March, that's exactly what happened. One of my customers met the dog, fell in love with the dog, and by that weekend, they had applied and been approved and decided to take Max home to their home with their kids. Now, we had no signs with Max that he was aggressive or had any resource guarding or anything like that. I mean, he would bark, but what dog doesn't bark? He would pull on the leash, but you can work on leash skills. Right away, the adopters did start to see some signs that he was not welcoming of new people. You know, he was great with them and with their 2 kids. He was sleeping in a crate. I should mention that he's crate trained. But they went to introduce him on leash to a neighbor, and he lunged at the neighbor. And I had never seen any of that behavior, so I kind of maybe thought, you know how it is, maybe the neighbor got into his space a little quickly, or I don't know, just something didn't go right. But it really felt like something that we could not necessarily dismiss, but that didn't need to be a major concern. Everything seemed to be going well. A couple of different times I would see them out on walks and say hello to Max. And he was even doing much better on walks where he wasn't pulling as much. And he just seemed to be settling in really well. Well, I was on vacation in June and I got a text from the adopter that Max wasn't letting other people into the home. And unfortunately, you know, they have kids. So they have, other parents, family, and then the kids' friends coming into the home. So they reached out for some resources for some trainers. And I sent a list over. Well, I had a partner at the rescue do it because I was, out of state. And I thought maybe, hey, they'll reach out to a trainer. This will be fine. Because they really love the dog. And I knew they loved the dog. That was never in question. Well, the day after I sent that list, apparently, I don't know if there was an incident. I don't know if they were just stressed. I don't know what happened really. But they reached out to the rescue and they said, we can no longer keep Max. We have to give him back. I think it's important at this time to note that many reputable, if not all, rescues and shelters will have some sort of clause in their adoption contract that says before if it doesn't work out with the dog, you have to give that dog back to us. You can't just give that dog away to anybody that you want to. And we don't want dogs to come back, right? We want to put them in their forever home. And rescues work really hard to do that. I think they're given this bad rep with, questions on the applications and asking for references and requiring certain type of living situations. And some people take real offense to that. But in reality, rescues are working really hard to make sure that that fit is not only a good fit for the dog and a great environment for the dog, but it's also the best case scenario for the humans. We didn't want those dogs to come back. But that being said, we know that it's just sometimes not going to work out. I mean, that's a lot of times how these dogs get to be in shelters to begin with. So we want that dog to come back into a place that's safe for that dog. And we don't want adopters rehoming dogs kind of in their own situation and at their own opinion. They're not going to do as thorough vetting as the rescue will. There's just no way. They don't necessarily know what tools to use. They don't have the same experience in adopting out. And ultimately, if they're deciding to get rid of the dog, it's probably an emotional decision. So they're either sad about it, they're frustrated, they're stressed out. Maybe they had a medical situation that's come about and they need to get rid of the dog because of that. It could be a number of reasons. But regardless, I don't think an adopter is going to be in the best headspace to make sure that that dog gets placed into what will end up being a really great home for it. So rescues and shelters would prefer that they get the dog back into safe hands. And we tell all of our adopters that, listen, this dog always has a home here. This dog is always welcome here. If anything happens and the dog needs to be returned, just text me. I'll tell them, text me, call me. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. I will come get the dog. And in the 19 dogs that we had one other dog that got returned after 5 days through no fault of her own. And that was Cheese. And we ended up adopting her. And I think we were just meant to have her. Maybe I'll tell that story another day. But this time the rescue reached out while I was on vacation and they said, we can't trust Max with strangers. We need to rehome him. We need to give him back to you guys. So the rescue then reached out to me and told me, and they said, are you able to take Max back? And I said, not for another week. I was on vacation and then I was having family come into town. And the behavior that they were describing was not behavior that I had seen. So I was having a really hard time believing that behavior in Max. But ultimately, I wasn't willing to take that risk because my sister was coming to town and she was bringing along my 5 nieces and nephews. So that was just not a good time to welcome a foster back into the house. So I said, I'm not available until June 21st. And the adopter agreed to keep him until then. And there was a huge part of me that was hoping that whatever had happened was kind of just a moment in time. And they would then decide to keep the dog ultimately long term. Well, that didn't happen. And on June 21st, I picked up the dog from the adopter. And the adopter was devastated, upset. But she said, he's so aggressive. And I hate using that word, but it is the reality of it. He's so aggressive when new people come around. I'm just really scared. I can't trust him. So again, I was having a hard time to believe that it was real, right? We picked him up and I said, well, if this is the case, I can't bring him to the office anymore. I can't run the risk of him going after one of my employees, going after a customer. It's just not worth it. So my husband and I committed to walking him a really long walk with him and Cheese every morning. And then we started out crating him while we were gone. But then we ended up putting him in the room of our house that we call the dog room, where he does have access to the inside of the house where it's cool. It's been really hot here in the Pittsburgh area. But that he also has access to the completely fenced in yard. We have cameras. We have Furbo cameras. Maybe one day I'll be able to advertise for them or something, who knows. But we also have Ring cameras on the front and back door. So throughout the day, you can kind of get notifications. What's the dog doing? Is everything going okay? And ultimately, it was going okay. So one of the days that we had him crated, my sister-in-law came over with her kids and my husband's cousin with her daughter because they wanted to use our pool, which is totally fine. When I got home, I put Max on a leash. And I said to my husband's cousin, who's a dog person, I said, will you do me a favor? Will you just give him treats? I kind of want to see if I can see this behavior that the adopters were talking about. And it started out fine. And she was giving him treats and things were going great. And then ultimately he ended up kind of giving her a warning lunge. And he did it without much of an actual warning. There was no low growl. There was no trying to walk away first. And you want those signs, right? It's easy to blame the person when they ignore those signs. But when those signs don't exist, it's really difficult to kind of measure the comfort level of the dog. You got to look for other signs. You got to be able to look a lot closer. And he gave her a warning lunge, and there was really no reason for it. It just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. And so we said, okay, this is a thing. He absolutely is not okay with strangers. He's just not. So I reached out to the rescue and I said, I am seeing the behavior. And he was doing it a little bit on walks as well. But leash aggression is a whole other thing. We can get into that, I'm sure, later on. You can't always trust that leash aggression on a walk is going to turn into aggression in your home. Ultimately, for most dogs, it doesn't. But we were seeing the leash side of things. And then we had this incident with my husband's cousin, who's fine, by the way. He never even made contact with her at all. So, we just reached out to the rescue and said, we are seeing this behavior. We need him to be adopted to a really strong leader. And again, it did also seem like he would get over it. So my stepmom came to visit, and we had her throwing him treats over the fence until he started to relax and you could see his body relax. And then we kept him on leash, brought her into the fence line, and he was pretty intensely sniffing her. But eventually he just started to ignore her. And for those that don't know this, a dog ignoring another animal, ignoring another dog, ignoring a human, that's actually a good sign that they're comfortable, right? It's when they're intense at that other being that you have to be aware. But when they ignore them or turn their back to them, it's very much a sign that they're comfortable. And that's what he was doing with my stepmom. So we put up, this rescue does a really good job of having the fosters send over pictures and a bio of the dog, and then they feature it on their Facebook page. And their Facebook page has gained some pretty decent traction in the area. So it's not uncommon to put up a dog on the Facebook page and see a couple of applications come in for the dog pretty quickly, especially if it's a well-written bio, maybe there's some videos attached, whatever. So right away, we get an application for Max, and it looked like a great application. I mean, this is a guy who lives alone, a younger guy. He's a police officer in the area. He has a girlfriend, but they don't live together. So it was just him. His apartment complex said that he was allowed to adopt this dog. So everything was looking great. So him and the girlfriend came over to meet the dog. And unfortunately, he lunged at the potential adopter 3 different times. Again, everyone was safe, which is incredibly important, not only for the dog's well-being, but for the humans. It's just all around very important. But that was really our indicator that this is more serious than just trying to find the right adopter. We have to start working on Max's core behavior in order to trust that he should even get adopted. I think what's so important about the message that I'm trying to get across in this project I'm doing, I keep calling it a project, is that rescuing animals is hard. It is really hard. And there are instances, even with, no-kill shelters or rescues that don't euthanize, where decisions have to be made that, unfortunately, this animal is not going to be able to put into a home and everyone can be safe, right? And it does happen. A lot of times, if the public hears about that, a rescue has put down an animal, they're really, really quick to judge that decision. But just like vets, rescues, people don't get into this because they want to do that. People get into this because they love animals and they want to help. So really, with him lunging at that adopter who was doing everything right, he was doing everything I told him to do, and Max lunged at him 3 times, we said, okay, here's the decisions that we have to make. We either work with a trainer and get some of these behaviors corrected, or we board him, which for a reactive dog is a terrible, terrible environment, right? Like, they're in a crate, he's pent up, he's high energy, he's reactive to strangers, and he's literally a caged animal. So that is not ideal for any dog, let alone a reactive one. Or a decision is made where he's not adoptable. And unfortunately, with that decision comes the end of his life. So I talked to some decision makers at the rescue. And fortunately, we have this incredible foster at the rescue named Lauren. And if she's comfortable with it, I'll share the name of the training that she does kind of on the side as a side business later on. But the rescue was willing to sponsor Lauren coming out and working with me and my husband and working with Max. And she has a reactive dog herself. It seems like she really has that dog in a position where she can have people over. It does sound like her dog is more dog selective and then reactive on leash. So she's safe in her home and that kind of thing. But she just had this like beautiful approach on making sure that let's evaluate how things are going with Max and then give you some tools to try to get him to the point where you can have people over. There can be strangers that enter your fence line, and everybody's going to be safe and everybody's going to be okay. So that's what we're working on now. And I'm creating this very first episode in the early stages of that. She was over here right before the holiday, because it's July 5th right now. So yesterday was the 4th, and she was over here right before then. And she gave me some incredible tools on working with him on walks, which is really kind of going to be the start of that, on making sure that I'm using methods to be able to distract him, and when there's a possible trigger, to refocus his attention on myself or my husband, to try to avoid reactivity. We all know, if you've ever owned a dog, it is better to catch them before they start to react to something than after, because I always say their ears shut off. So, for example, if you see the bunny rabbit before your dog does, you try to get your dog's attention before they go off like a rocket at the rabbit. Because once they're chasing the rabbit, good luck getting them back, right? I mean, those are the best of the best recall dogs that you can stop from chasing a rabbit. So those are the tools that she's given me. It does seem that Max is more reactive to men than women, which is crazy because he loves my husband. Oh, like, he loves my husband. And I kind of didn't finish telling the story about my stepmom visiting for the weekend. He ended up loving her. Like, she was only here for, from Friday evening to Sunday, late morning. And like Saturday night, we were downstairs drinking wine, watching a movie or something. And he was like all snuggled up on her. So the capacity for him to welcome new people in his life is absolutely there. It's just that what can happen before he does accept is so scary, right? And it can be dangerous. So that's the bridge that we're trying to build here. So we're in the beginning of it, and I'm encouraged. He is very food motivated, which anybody that has trained a dog will tell you is a blessing when a dog is food motivated, because they're much likely to pay attention to you and be willing to participate in the training. He does seem smart. Like I said, he has either German Shepherd or Malinois in him, and they are very trainable dogs. They're very intelligent. So all of these things are really positive signs that we're on the right path with him. Lauren's going to come over here on Wednesday, and my friend is going to meet her here. We wanted to bring in a man to the house that Max has never met before. Like I mentioned, yesterday was the holiday. Like I mentioned, we have a pool. So we had a bunch of people over yesterday. Now, we gave Max a really long walk, a training walk, so he was stimulated. And then before my friends came over, we actually gave him trazodone, appropriate for his weight, and we put him in the crate, because there was just no way, right? Nobody's going to be safe in that scenario. So he didn't like it, but ultimately that's the best way to keep everybody safe, is he was crated all day. We have a room downstairs, like my laundry room, that we can isolate him, and he can rest, and he's safe and he's comfortable, right? Not ideal, but the best decision for the situation that we were in. But after pretty much everybody left, two of my really good friends were here, Susan, who has a dog, and then our friend JC, who doesn't really have the lifestyle that suits a dog, but loves dogs, right? So they're dog people. And like I said, Max had trazodone in his system, so he was very chill, but he needed to come out of the crate. I needed to be able to let him to run around before I put him back in the crate to go to bed. And he was great with them. I mean, listen, he was high as a kite. So a big part of that was the drugs he was on. And I'm not going to say, oh my God, he's fixed now. No, he was high. Like, we're all friendlier when we're high. So he comes out, and they were both able to give him treats. Michael had already gone to bed. It was a long day in the sun, and we were drinking and having a good time. So Michael was in bed. And they were able to give him treats, and he was sniffing them a little bit intensely, but he was on leash the whole time. And I was very in tune to what his body language looked like. Susan was actually able to pet him, which was crazy, because again, they'd never met before. So that was awesome. JC didn't get quite that far, but he did take treats directly from JC's hands, after a couple of JC tossing him treats, which is awesome because everybody's a safe distance and he's happy and he's getting fed and whatever. JC is supposed to come on Wednesday when Lauren is here. And I'm really excited to see, does he still react to JC because he just met him? Are we seeing less of a reaction? Are we seeing less duration of a reaction? Are we seeing less intensity? Yeah, we're just going to have to see. I have to keep working with him when Lauren's not here. That's a big mistake people make in training, isn't it? They work with the trainer and then they just expect after 1 or 2 sessions with the trainer that the dog's just going to be better. And like, it has to be repetitive. And if the whole family isn't willing to work on it, then it's not going to be successful and you're kind of wasting your money. And I'm sure there are people that will disagree with that, but I'm sure there's a whole heck of a lot of trainers that if they heard that would be like, yeah, that is the story of my life. I'm really excited to see how this goes. He is so freaking loving and so sweet. I mean, he's nuts because he's young and he's energetic, but he's so sweet and he has accepted us. I can take food right out of his mouth because he likes to like get into everything. So like if he gets something in his mouth he shouldn't have, I can like take it out of his mouth, which is not something you should be doing with every dog, let alone every foster. But he trusts me and I trust him. So I know he has the potential to be an incredible family dog. We just have to get him there. And it's just going to take some work for him to get there. I don't know what the end of this project looks like. I hope that you guys liked the first episode. I hope that you're looking forward to hearing more about our stories. I intend to interview other fosters about their dogs. In fact, I have a friend, Chrissy. She got me into fostering because she was doing it for years before I even consider it. And just the way that she was welcoming these dogs or puppies into her life and then finding them homes, it was just such a cool thing to watch. She has a long-term foster right now through another rescue. There's a rescue in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania called Tiny Cause. They do really great work in Vandergrift for sure, which is an area that unfortunately has a decent amount of need for animal welfare support. And she's had Arthur for, I want to say at least 3 months now, maybe longer. And so she's going to come on and she's going to talk about him and his story and what his perfect family looks like. And then what I'm going to do is I have created an Instagram page called the Foster Files Podcast. I'm going to post pictures and video of the dogs that we talk about. So if you go to that page, you will see Max and you will see pictures of Max and video of Max. And you'll also find a link to Cross Your Paws, which is the organization that I work with. And you can go on there. You can see the other adoptable animals that we have across your paws, primarily dogs. And you can apply. You can apply to be an adopter. You can apply to be a foster. And you can just learn more about the organization itself. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. I enjoy talking. So hopefully this all works out. And it was entertaining. I'm going to set up a Gmail account. I don't have that yet. And that way you can send in questions. You can send in feedback. I'd love to hear what everybody has to say. But thank you so much for listening and have a great day.